Hey guys, welcome back to Sleeping Stone Whispers. Tonight, we're traveling to the quiet heart of Japan, where a cup of tea becomes a world, and every breath feels like a prayer. This is the story of the tea ceremony, a slow and spiritual dance of water, steam, and silence, where beauty hides in the smallest gestures. If you love stories that calm your mind and slow down time itself, stay with me till the end of this one. And before we begin, take a breath, relax, and if you enjoy this peaceful journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, so you never miss a whisper from Sleeping Stone Whispers. The morning was wrapped in mist. Somewhere beyond the hills of Kyoto, the air carried the faint scent of pine and rain, and the soft whistle of a kettle rising from a wooden house by the stream. To most, it was nothing, just the sound of water meeting heat. But to a quiet boy named Ren, it was a call. Ren had heard that sound every morning of his life. His grandmother's house was small, built of cedar and silence, its sliding doors breathing with the wind. Every dawn, before the birds began their songs, he would hear her kettle sing, a thin, trembling note that always faded before the first light touched the garden stones. He would lie there, half asleep, wondering what it meant to wake up so early for something as simple as tea. One morning, he finally asked her. "Grandmother," he whispered, still wrapped in his blanket, "why do you make tea before the sun?" Her answer was as quiet as her movements. "Because the sun doesn't need to see everything," she said. "Some things are meant for the dark, and for listening." He didn't understand, not then. But he watched her carefully that morning. The way she folded the cloth, how she wiped the bowl as though touching something sacred. The whisk danced for only a few seconds, yet it felt like the world paused to watch. When she poured the tea, the steam curled upward like a spirit trying to return home. Ren leaned closer, his breath fogging the cup's edge. "Do you hear it?" his grandmother asked. He nodded, though what he heard was only water. Years later, he would remember that sound, the gentle hiss, the rising steam, as the first lesson. It was the sound of stillness coming alive. Outside, the mist thinned. The world seemed to exhale. And somewhere inside Ren's chest, a quiet began to grow, a curiosity shaped like a question he didn't yet know how to ask. That day, his grandmother handed him a small bamboo whisk. "Keep it," she said. "One day, you'll learn to listen better." Ren held it in both hands, afraid to breathe. The tool felt too light to carry such meaning, but he could feel warmth in it, like it remembered the sound of steam. As he stepped outside, the first sunlight touched the garden stones. The kettle still whispered behind him. And the mist, soft, slow, eternal, carried that sound into the hills, like a secret waiting for him to follow. The next morning came with soft light, falling through the maple leaves like golden rain. Ren sat outside his grandmother's house, holding the bamboo whisk she had given him. He turned it slowly in his hands, watching how the thin tines caught the sunlight. It looked fragile, like something that might break if he thought too loudly. In the distance, the road curved around a hill, hidden between cedar trees and fog. It was rare for travelers to come that way. The path led nowhere except a small shrine, and beyond that, the forest swallowed everything. But that morning, Ren saw someone walking toward the house, a figure dressed in pale gray robes, carrying a small wooden box. The man walked with the quiet grace of falling petals. When he reached the maple tree by the gate, he stopped, not to knock, not to call, but simply to bow. Ren froze. He had never seen a bow like that. It wasn't a greeting, it was something deeper, almost like a prayer. The stranger looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he said softly. His voice was steady, like still water. Ren stood and bowed back, awkward and unsure. "My grandmother is inside," he said quickly. She's making tea." The man nodded. "That's why I'm here." He stepped closer and sat beneath the maple tree, folding his legs neatly. From his wooden box, he took out a small, rough cup, the kind that looked imperfect on purpose. Its rim was uneven, its color faded like the last breath of autumn. Ren stared, curious. "Is that broken?" The man smiled. "No. It's whole because it's been broken." Ren didn't understand, but the man's words lingered like steam. Soon, his grandmother came out, her gray hair tied in a simple knot. When she saw the stranger, she stopped and bowed deeply. "Sensei," she said. "It's been many years." Ren blinked. "Sensei." The man returned her bow with warmth. "And yet your tea still reaches the heart," he said. She smiled faintly. "It only reaches those who listen." They both laughed softly, and Ren felt the world grow even quieter, as though the trees themselves were listening. The man poured a small amount of tea into the cracked cup, his hands moving with precision. Every motion was deliberate, but nothing felt forced. When he lifted the cup toward Ren, the boy hesitated. "For me?" "Yes," said the man. "For the one who heard the steam." Ren accepted the cup, careful not to spill a drop. He raised it to his lips. The aroma was earthy, deep, and calm. The first sip was bitter, but it carried something alive, like rain touching dry ground. When he looked up again, the man was watching him, smiling. "Tea," the man said, "isn't about taste. It's about noticing." Ren lowered the cup, his small fingers trembling. "Noticing what?" The man's eyes drifted to the garden, where the wind moved a single maple leaf across the stones. "Everything," he said. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was the soft rustle of the leaf as it danced on the wind, a sound so delicate, Ren might have missed it on any other day. The man rose, bowed once more, and placed a folded cloth beside Ren's grandmother. "I've come to invite him," he said. She nodded without surprise. "I thought you might." The man turned toward Ren. "When you're ready," he said, "follow the sound of the stream. There's a small house beyond the pines. Bring your whisk." And with that, he walked away, disappearing into the mist, his presence fading like steam over a cup. Ren sat there for a long time, staring at the path where the stranger had vanished. The garden was silent again, yet it didn't feel empty. The sound of the stream reached his ears, faint and steady. He looked at his grandmother. Who was he? She smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of memory. "The one who first taught me to listen," she said. The next morning, the mist returned, thicker than before, soft as smoke and cool against Ren's skin. He followed the sound of the stream, just as the stranger had said. Each step on the narrow path felt slower than the last, the world hushed beneath the damp whisper of the pines. The forest seemed alive, yet not watching, more like breathing with him. The only sound was the small creek murmuring over stones, a voice both old and patient. Ren held the bamboo whisk close to his chest. His palms were sweating, not from fear, but from the weight of not knowing what he was about to find. The path curved one last time, and there, tucked between moss-covered rocks and an old gate, stood a small tea house. Its walls were made of paper and wood, its roof heavy with dew. No smoke rose from it, no sound came out, yet something about it felt awake, as if it had been waiting. Ren paused before the gate. A bell hung above it, not metal, but clay, and when the breeze touched it, it made a soft, earthy tone, lower than chimes, warmer than silence. He bowed without knowing why. It just felt right. When he stepped inside, the air changed. It smelled of pine ash, old tatami mats, and something faintly sweet, like rain drying on bamboo. Inside, the stranger sat waiting. The same gray robe. The same stillness. But this time, there was no smile, only a calm look that felt both kind and firm. "You came," the man said. Ren nodded, barely whispering, "You invited me." The man gestured to a small seat by the hearth. "Then sit. And wait." Ren obeyed. He sat cross-legged on the tatami, clutching the whisk, watching the empty tea bowl that rested in front of him. The man didn't move. Neither of them spoke. Time began to stretch, like a string pulled too far without breaking. At first, Ren's thoughts raced. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? When will it start? Then, slowly, the thoughts began to fade, one by one, until all that was left was the sound of his own breathing. The man finally spoke. "Do you see the bowl?" Ren nodded. "Yes." "What do you see?" "A cup," Ren said quietly. "Waiting to be filled." The man's eyes softened. "Good. But tell me, what if it's already full?" Ren blinked. "It's empty." The man smiled faintly. "Not of air. Not of light. Not of stillness." He leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "If you wish to understand tea, you must first understand waiting. Because waiting is where the world begins again." He lifted the bowl and placed it in Ren's hands. The clay felt cool, heavier than it looked. "Hold it," said the man. "Don't drink. Don't pour. Just, hold." Ren did. At first, it was simple, but soon he noticed how his fingers adjusted, how his breathing slowed, how the weight of the bowl shifted slightly as his heart beat. He could hear everything now, the distant stream, the faint drip from the roof, the wind brushing the wall. It was as if the world was leaning closer to listen to him holding the bowl. After a long while, the man nodded. "Good. You've begun to hear." Ren looked at him, confused. "Hear what?" "The silence that holds everything," said the man. "Even steam." He took the bowl back, bowed slightly, and poured a small stream of water into it. The sound was soft, but it cut through the air like a bell underwater. "Every sound," he said, "is a door. The tea ceremony is simply learning which doors to open." Ren watched the water shimmer. His own reflection trembled on the surface, small, pale, uncertain. He wanted to ask more questions, but something inside told him not to. The moment was whole just as it was. The man placed the bowl between them. "Come back tomorrow," he said. "The cup will be waiting again." Ren bowed deeply, the way he had seen his grandmother do, and stepped back into the mist. The forest greeted him with the same silence, but now it felt different. It was no longer empty. It was listening. And as he walked home, he realized something small but certain. He could still hear the sound of steam, even though there was no kettle anywhere near. The rain came softly that morning, thin as silk threads, steady as breathing. Ren waited outside the tea house, beneath the same maple tree where he had first met the stranger. His grandmother had said nothing when he told her he was leaving again. She had only nodded, as if she had been waiting for this day, too. The forest was darker now, the mist rising from the earth like smoke from a quiet fire. The air smelled of wet bamboo and moss. Each step on the path gave a faint, damp sound, as if the forest were teaching him how to walk without disturbing its dreams. He reached the small gate and bowed before entering. The clay bell swayed gently but made no sound. Even silence, Ren thought, had moods of its own. Inside, the man in gray waited as before, sitting near the hearth. A single candle burned low, its light touching the paper walls with a warm, trembling glow. Inside, the man in gray waited as before, sitting near the hearth. A single candle burned low, its light touching the paper walls with a warm, trembling glow. "You came," the man said again, his tone unchanged, neither joy nor surprise, only quiet certainty. Ren bowed. "You said the cup would be waiting." The man nodded. "It always waits. We are the ones who forget." Ren sat. The tatami mats were cool beneath his knees. He placed his small bamboo whisk beside him, careful not to make noise. For a while, the two sat without words. The man poured water into the kettle, and the first soft hiss of heat filled the room. The sound was gentle, but it drew Ren's attention like a thread pulling through cloth. The man noticed his gaze. "Do you hear that?" "Yes," Ren whispered. "The water, it sounds alive." "It is," the man said. "Everything becomes alive when you listen deeply enough." He stood and motioned toward the door at the back of the tea room. "Come," he said. "Let me show you the path." Ren followed him outside. Behind the tea house, a narrow trail wound through a small bamboo grove. The rain had stopped, but droplets still fell from the tall green stalks, each one catching the dim light before vanishing into the earth. "Do you know why tea houses have gardens like this?" the man asked as they walked. Ren shook his head. "So that your steps can forget the world," the man said. "Every stone you walk on, every leaf you pass, each one removes something from your mind. The path doesn't lead you to the tea room. It leads you away from everything else." Ren listened. The soft tap of dripping water mixed with the slow creak of bamboo bending in the wind. He could feel something loosening inside him, not joy, not sadness, just a lightness. At the end of the path stood a small stone basin. Water dripped into it from a hollow bamboo pipe. The sound was rhythmical, ancient, talk, talk, talk. The man gestured toward it. "This is Tsukubai, the basin of humility. Before you enter the tea house, you must bow and wash your hands. It reminds you that the ceremony is not about you." Ren knelt. The stone was cool, the water colder still. When he dipped his fingers into it, the chill ran through his whole arm, a clean, quiet sensation, like waking from a dream. He washed his hands slowly, then bowed to the basin. The man watched silently, then spoke. Now you are ready to enter not as a boy, but as a guest. They returned to the tea house. The candle still burned, the kettle still whispered. The man gestured toward the small door on the side, no taller than Ren's chest. This is the Nijiraguchi, he said. The crawling door. Everyone, lord or peasant, must bow low to enter. It reminds us that in this room, we are all the same. Ren stared at the small door. Even samurai bow through it. Especially samurai, the man said with a faint smile. The tea room is the only place where swords cannot follow. Ren bowed and crawled through the door. The room beyond was dim but warm. The air shimmered with the scent of roasted tea leaves and candle smoke. When he looked up, the man was already seated across from him, his eyes calm and steady. Remember this, the man said softly. Every ceremony begins before the tea is made. It begins here, with the path, with the bow, with silence. Ren nodded, his heart still echoing the rhythm of the dripping basin. Talk, talk, talk. The man lifted the kettle lid slightly, and a thin ribbon of steam rose between them. In time, he said, you will learn that the path, the basin, the bow, and even the steam, are all one thing. Ren tilted his head. One thing. The man smiled. Stillness. Outside, the rain began again, gentle, endless, soft. The tea ceremony had not yet begun, and yet, Ren felt it already had. The next few days passed like leaves floating down a stream, slow, soundless, and uncounted. Ren came every morning, walking the same bamboo path, bowing at the stone basin, and entering the small tea room through the low door. Each time, the same silence waited for him inside, the kind that wasn't empty, but full of invisible things. He began to notice small details that once escaped him. The faint scent of straw in the tatami mats, the thin trail of steam curling toward the roof, the soft creak of the kettle lid when it lifted and settled again. Everything had its rhythm. Nothing hurried. Nothing lingered. One morning, the man in gray spoke. Do you know why tatami mats are this size? Ren looked down. No, sensei. Because a single mat fits the measure of a body in stillness, the man said. You could lie down, sit, or kneel, and still be contained within it. The room's size reminds us that peace doesn't need space. Only attention. Ren nodded, though part of him didn't yet understand. He looked around the room, only 4.5 mats wide. He'd once thought it small. Now it felt vast. The man's hands moved as he spoke, folding a cloth with careful precision. Every corner met another perfectly, the movement slow but steady, like waves lapping a shore. Most people think the ceremony is about serving tea, he said. But tea is only the excuse. What we're truly serving is time itself. Ren watched him, mesmerized. Time. The man smiled faintly. Yes. Time, shaped by patience. We measure not by clocks, but by breaths, by drops, by moments that pass unnoticed. He poured a stream of hot water into the bowl. The sound was soft but complete, like the end of a sentence whispered in another language. Ren felt the air change, the warmth rising, the shadows trembling slightly on the walls. Sensei, he said after a while, why are the walls made of paper? To remind us that nothing separates the world outside from the one within, the man replied. If you listen closely, you can hear the wind move through both. Ren tried. At first, he heard nothing but the kettle. Then slowly, he began to notice it, the faint rustle of leaves, the whisper of bamboo brushing bamboo. It was distant, yet part of the same silence that filled the room. The man watched him. Good, he said softly. You're beginning to hear with more than your ears. Ren lowered his gaze, feeling both proud and humbled. It's strange, he murmured. When I'm here, I forget what day it is. That's because this room doesn't belong to days, the man said. It belongs to moments. He leaned forward, his eyes calm but intent. Outside this house, the world races. Inside, time kneels. You must learn to kneel with it. Ren thought about that for a long time. When the man handed him the cloth, he took it carefully, copying the motions he had seen. His folds were uneven, clumsy, corners didn't meet, and once, he dropped it. He looked up, embarrassed. I ruined it. The man chuckled softly. No, you didn't. You just revealed yourself. The cloth shows what the heart feels. Ren frowned. Then I must be full of mistakes. Good, the man said. That means you're alive. He took the cloth back, unfolded it, and began again, slower this time, guiding Ren's eyes to each motion. One day, he said, you'll fold it and forget you ever had to learn. They sat in silence as the tea cooled, the air rich with the scent of roasted leaves. The candle flickered lower, and Ren realized how the light, too, moved in rhythm, shrinking as the day aged. The man spoke one last time, his voice almost a whisper. Tea is not a drink, Ren. It's a conversation, between time, hands, and heart. You don't make tea. You let it happen. Ren nodded slowly, his eyes on the bowl. He didn't yet understand the full meaning, but something inside him shifted, a quiet recognition, like a gate unlocking in his chest. When he left the tea house that day, the forest light felt softer. The air itself seemed slower, the world breathing in sync with him. He walked home with empty hands, but he felt full, not of answers, but of stillness. And as he crossed the bamboo path, the sound of dripping water marked his steps, talk, 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 each drop falling exactly where time was meant to pause. The day came when the air itself felt still, as if the forest were waiting for something sacred to begin. Ren arrived earlier than usual, his steps measured, his breath calm. The bamboo leaves shivered lightly above him, sending down small beads of dew that rolled off his sleeves like drops of glass. When he reached the tea house, the man in gray was already kneeling by the hearth. The candle was unlit. The kettle was empty. There was no sound, no movement, only the weight of quiet, deep and deliberate. Ren bowed low, waiting for the man to speak. But the man said nothing. Minutes passed. The air thickened with silence until Ren began to feel its shape, large, round, and alive. Finally, the man lifted his head. Today, he said, you will learn to bow. Ren looked up, uncertain. But I already bow before I enter. The man's eyes softened. That bow is for the house. Today's bow is for everything else. He gestured toward the center of the room, where a single tea bowl rested on a black mat. Nothing else. No whisk. No cloth. No water. Ren moved toward it, but the man raised a hand. Not yet. First, look. Ren knelt where he was and gazed at the bowl. It was simple, almost crude, uneven edges, faint cracks running through the glaze, and a small dark mark near the rim. But the longer he looked, the more he noticed, the way the light pooled softly inside, the quiet strength in its imperfections, the way its emptiness seemed vast, almost infinite. "It's empty," Ren said quietly. "Yes," the man replied. "And so must you be." He motioned for Ren to come closer. "When you bow before the bowl, do not bow to the object. Bow to what it holds." Ren hesitated. "But it's holding nothing." The man smiled. "Then bow to nothing. For nothing is what gives everything room to exist." Ren lowered his head. His forehead touched the mat. For a moment, he felt foolish, bowing to an empty bowl in a silent room. But then, something shifted. He felt the warmth of his own breath rise against the mat. He heard his heartbeat slow until it matched the faint creak of bamboo outside. And in that stillness, something in him opened, not a thought, not a feeling, just a space. The same kind of space that lived inside the bowl. The man's voice came softly, almost as if carried by the steam that wasn't there. "Now you begin to see." Ren lifted his head. The bowl hadn't changed, yet it felt different. Larger. Quieter. He realized that what made it beautiful wasn't the clay, or the color, or even the shape, it was the emptiness inside that allowed all those things to be. The man poured a small stream of water into the bowl. The sound filled the room like the first breath after silence. "Emptiness," he said, "is not the absence of life. It is life unspoken." Ren watched as the steam began to rise, slow, graceful, alive. It curled upward, disappearing into the ceiling shadows. He felt something inside him rise the same way, an understanding too fragile for words. When the man finally placed a cup of tea before him, Ren bowed again, this time without instruction. The motion felt natural, not performed, not learned, just honest. The man nodded approvingly. "You have begun the ceremony," he said. "Not with your hands, but with your heart." Ren took the cup and held it near his face. The steam brushed his skin like breath. He didn't drink yet, just waited, feeling its warmth. Outside, the wind moved through the bamboo like the sound of 1,000 soft bells. Inside, Ren sat perfectly still, one heartbeat, one breath, one silence at a time. And for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to bow before emptiness. To offer gratitude to the space that allows everything else to exist. Morning mist wrapped the mountain in silver silk. The path to the tea house shimmered with dew, each drop catching light like a quiet secret. Ren walked barefoot, as his teacher had instructed, to feel the pulse of the earth beneath him. Every stone was cool, every step deliberate. When he reached the wooden gate, the man in gray was already waiting. He sat beside a small basin filled with clear mountain water. A single round stone rested inside it, smooth, pale, perfectly still. "Today," the man said, "you will wash the stone." Ren blinked. "Only that?" The man smiled faintly. "Only that." He gestured for Ren to kneel. The basin was shallow, the water cold enough to make Ren's fingertips sting. He touched the stone, expecting roughness, but it was smooth, soft almost, worn by time and patience. Use both hands, the man said. Let the water teach you how to move. Ren began to wash. The task seemed simple: water, stone, hands. But after a few moments, he realized how much of himself was still rushing. His movements were too quick, too uneven, too loud. The man said nothing, only watched. Ren slowed down. He let the rhythm find him, the sound of dripping, the feel of water sliding through his fingers, the tiny echo of breath against stillness. Something happened then. The water no longer felt cold. The stone no longer felt like an object. They were both just there. Do you feel the stone? The man asked softly. Ren nodded. It feels alive. The man smiled. Everything that receives care becomes alive. They stayed like that, silent, slow, washing, until the sun climbed high enough to pierce the leaves. The light turned the water into liquid gold. When Ren finally lifted the stone, it gleamed faintly, droplets sliding down its curved surface. He placed it on a folded cloth as the man nodded. You see, the man said, there is no such thing as small work. Only small attention. Ren bowed slightly. I understand. But the man shook his head. No. You feel. Understanding is for the head. Feeling is for the tea. Ren smiled at that, the kind of smile that happens quietly, from deep inside. The man poured warm water into the kettle and began to whisk the tea. Steam rose between them, moving like silk threads in the air. Look at the steam, he said. It touches everything but leaves no mark. That is how you must move through the world. Ren watched the steam drift upward, dissolving into the light. It looked free, unbound, graceful. Then the steam is also a teacher, Ren said. The man looked at him with eyes that carried the calm of many winters. It has always been. We just forget to listen. The two of them drank in silence, the tea warm, the world still. When Ren placed his empty cup down, the man pointed at the washed stone beside the basin. You washed it well. But do you know why? Ren hesitated. Because it should be cleaned before use. The man shook his head gently. Because it reflected your heart. And now, your heart is clear. Ren looked at the stone again. The water on its surface mirrored his face, calm, simple, alive. And for the first time, he understood that even washing a stone could be a sacred act, if done with the right heart. The morning opened like a slow breath. Sunlight filtered through the shoji screens in pale lines, tracing golden paths across the tatami. The tea house smelled faintly of wood smoke and fresh water, a scent that seemed to hum in harmony with the quiet. Ren knelt before the low table. Before him lay the tools of the ceremony, a bamboo whisk, a small bowl, a folded silk cloth, and the dark, fragrant matcha that waited in still silence. The man in gray sat across from him, watching. His hands rested lightly on his knees, unmoving, but alive with awareness. Today, he said softly, you will make your first bowl. Ren's heart lifted, part excitement, part fear. He had watched his teacher for weeks, memorizing every movement, every pause. But imitation felt fragile. The tea ceremony, he was beginning to learn, wasn't about copying. It was about listening. The man gestured toward the whisk. Hold it as you would hold a pulse, not tight, not loose. Feel its breath. Ren took it gently. The bamboo prongs brushed against his fingers, light as feathers, warm from the morning air. Now, the man said, the dance. He poured water into the bowl, steam rising like soft threads. Do not stir, he said. Invite. Ren dipped the whisk into the bowl and began to move. His first motion was uncertain, too deep, too hurried. The sound was clumsy, the rhythm uneven. The man closed his eyes, listening. Stop, he said. Breathe. Ren inhaled. The scent of green tea filled his chest. He exhaled slowly, letting the air carry his tension away. Now again, said the man. Let the water tell you how fast to move. Ren closed his eyes this time. He let his hands remember what his eyes had always watched, the circle, the rhythm, the rise of bubbles that shimmered like jade. The whisk began to move smoothly, gracefully. The sound changed, no longer harsh, but soft and rhythmic, like rain on bamboo. The man opened his eyes and smiled faintly. Yes. Now it dances. Ren didn't know how long he whisked. Time seemed to dissolve. There was only sound, warmth, breath, and motion. When he finally stopped, the surface of the tea shone like green silk, alive with quiet light. The man leaned forward. Look closely, he said. Ren gazed into the bowl. Tiny ripples trembled across the surface, each reflecting the faintest glimmer of gold from the morning light. What do you see? The man asked. Ren hesitated. I see myself. But softer. The man smiled. Then you have begun to understand. The whisk does not make tea. It reveals the stillness beneath the surface. He motioned for Ren to lift the bowl. Ren did, slowly, reverently, and took a sip. The flavor was unlike anything he'd ever tasted. It wasn't just tea. It was warmth, forest, silence, and breath, all woven together. The man's voice drifted across the still air. When your heart moves like the whisk, not forcing, not fighting, even the world will begin to foam in beauty. Ren placed the bowl down carefully. The last trace of steam rose upward, twisting gently before vanishing into light. He whispered, the whisk dances, but the stillness teaches. The man nodded. Exactly so. Outside, a soft wind moved through the pines. Inside, Ren bowed low, the bamboo whisk still trembling faintly in his hand, a reminder that even motion, when born from silence, becomes sacred. The rain had returned. It fell in thin silver threads, whispering over the bamboo roof, tapping gently on the stones outside. Inside the tea house, the world was a cloud of stillness, the scent of wet earth, wood, and faint smoke curling through the air like memory. Ren sat before the low table again, the tools arranged as perfectly as ever, bowl, whisk, cloth, and water. But today, something new awaited, a small, lacquered container of matcha. The man in gray sat beside him, eyes soft, voice steady. Today, he said, you will learn how much is enough. Ren looked down at the small bamboo scoop. How much should I take? The man tilted his head slightly. That is what you must find. Ren opened the container. Inside lay a fine green powder, so bright it almost glowed. It smelled of spring forests and quiet rain, of something old yet newly born. He dipped the scoop and lifted it carefully. A small mound rested on its tip, fragile, alive. He placed it in the bowl, then another. But before he could add a third, the man raised a hand. "Stop." Ren froze. "Too much." The man smiled faintly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps not. You must look deeper." He leaned closer, pointing at the two small piles of powder. "What do they say to you?" Ren frowned slightly. "They look uneven. One smaller, one larger." "And how does that feel?" "Unbalanced," Ren said softly. The man nodded. "Then the tea has already spoken." Ren hesitated, then gently took a pinch from the larger mound and placed it aside. Now the two were even, not by rule, but by feeling. He looked up, and the man's eyes warmed. "Yes. That is a drop of balance, the first step toward harmony." Ren poured hot water into the bowl. The steam rose slowly, like a spirit waking. He began to whisk, remembering the rhythm, soft, steady, alive. The surface came to life, green foam blooming like moss after rain. When the tea was ready, he lifted the whisk. One perfect drop clung to its tip, trembling, glowing emerald in the light. The man leaned forward. "There it is," he whispered. "A drop of green." Ren watched the droplet slide down into the bowl, merging quietly with the rest. He didn't know why, but his chest felt heavy, not with sadness, but with something deeper, quieter. "Why does it feel alive?" he asked. The man's voice was low, almost part of the rain. "Because you are finally seeing it. That drop carries the mountain, the wind, the farmer's hands, the rain that fell months ago. When you touch it with care, you touch everything." Ren looked down at the bowl again, at the green that seemed to breathe, shimmering softly in the candlelight. He lifted it, bowed, and took a sip. The taste was deeper this time, smooth, almost earthy, yet light as breath. It lingered on his tongue like the memory of forest air. The man closed his eyes. "Do you feel how it stays, even after the swallow?" Ren nodded. "It doesn't end." "Nothing truly ends," said the man. "Even a drop remembers where it came from." Outside, thunder rolled softly in the distance, not loud, but steady, like the slow drum of time. Ren placed the bowl down carefully, his reflection trembling in the green surface. The man in gray looked at him quietly. "Someday," he said, "you will understand that life itself is made of these countless drops of green, each one vanishing, yet eternal." The rain softened. The air glowed faintly with the scent of matcha and wood. Ren bowed low, his hands steady now, not from mastery, but from gratitude. For the first time, he didn't just make tea. He met it. Winter had left the mountain. The last snow melted quietly along the moss paths, trickling down into the earth like whispered secrets. The tea house, once wrapped in cold silence, now smelled of cedar, sun, and damp clay. Ren sat inside, arranging the utensils as he always did. Each tool in its place, every movement deliberate. But today, something was missing. The man in gray entered carrying a small wooden box. Without a word, he placed it before Ren and opened the lid. Inside lay a bowl, or what had once been one. Its surface was fractured, a web of golden lines glinting under the light. Ren leaned forward. It's broken. The man's eyes softened. It was. He lifted the bowl gently, setting it on the tatami. Now it's something else. Ren traced one of the golden seams with his gaze. It's beautiful. But also sad. That's because it's honest, the man replied. This is kintsugi, the art of repair. We mend what's broken, not to hide the damage, but to honor it. Ren looked closer. The cracks weren't flaws anymore. They were stories, the marks of time, of use, of falling and being lifted again. Why show the cracks, he asked. The man smiled faintly. Because the bowl still serves tea. That is enough. He handed the bowl to Ren. It was warm to the touch, as though it had remembered every hand that ever held it. Today, the man said, you will use this bowl. Pour the water, whisk the tea, as you always do. Ren hesitated. But what if it breaks again? Then you will mend it again, said the man simply. And each time, it will become more whole. Ren bowed and began the ceremony. As the whisk moved through the bowl, the sound was different, softer, deeper, as though the cracks carried their own music. The tea frothed, the steam rose. When he poured it, the light caught the golden veins like rivers of sunlight running through green hills. He offered the cup to his teacher. The man received it with care, bowing low. This tea, he said, tastes of courage. Ren smiled faintly. It's strange, when I touch it, I don't see brokenness anymore. Only, quiet strength. The man nodded. Clay teaches us what the heart forgets, that scars can shine if we let them. Ren looked down at his reflection trembling in the golden cracks. He realized that in some way, he too had been mended, slowly, quietly, through the rhythm of water, steam, and silence. The man placed a hand on his shoulder. You see now, Ren. Perfection is a frozen thing. Life breathes through imperfection. Outside, the mountain wind returned, carrying the faint scent of wet leaves. Inside, a cracked bowl gleamed softly in the light, whole, humble, and clear. Ren bowed once more, not to the teacher, not to the bowl, but to everything that had ever broken and still dared to shine. Spring arrived on the mountain, but not in color. The trees stood bare, their branches thin as ink lines against a white sky. The plum trees, which should have been heavy with blossoms, slept longer than usual that year. Even the birds seemed uncertain, their songs brief, hesitant, unfinished. Ren swept the garden path in silence. The broom whispered across the ground, brushing away fallen twigs and the dust of winter. Every few moments, he looked up at the plum trees, waiting for the first pink bloom to appear. None did. When the man in gray came out, Ren bowed. The trees are late this year, Ren said softly. The man smiled faintly. The mountain keeps its own time. He picked up a handful of soil, dark and cold. What you see is only the surface. Beneath this, the roots are already busy. Ren nodded but still felt a quiet disappointment. I wanted to see them bloom, he admitted. Why? The man asked. Ren hesitated. Because blossoms mean life. Beauty. Renewal. The man looked toward the sleeping trees. And what is this, then? Death? Ren lowered his eyes. No, but it feels empty. The man nodded. Then perhaps it is time to learn the beauty of emptiness. They returned inside the tea house. The air was cool, filled with the faint scent of drying bamboo. The man set down 2 bowls, one of clay, one of polished porcelain. "Which do you find more beautiful?" he asked. Ren looked carefully. The porcelain was smooth, shining, flawless. The clay bowl was rough, uneven, still carrying faint traces of the potter's fingers. "The porcelain," Ren said. "It's perfect." The man lifted the clay bowl and poured tea into it. The color of the matcha deepened against the dull surface, glowing softly. Then he poured tea into the porcelain. It gleamed cold and white, reflecting the light but holding none of it. "Now look again," he said. Ren stared. The clay bowl seemed alive, breathing with warmth. The porcelain remained distant, beautiful, but untouched by feeling. The man smiled. "The world teaches us to love blossoms. But the roots are just as sacred. The clay is where life begins." Ren felt something stir inside him, a quiet understanding that didn't need words. They drank in silence. The tea's warmth spread through his hands, steady and gentle. Outside, the wind brushed against the silent trees. After a long pause, the man spoke again. "Some seasons bloom in ways the eyes can't see. Spring doesn't always bring flowers. Sometimes, it brings patience." Ren looked out the window again. The bare trees no longer looked empty. They looked, waiting. Alive in their stillness. He bowed deeply. "I think I understand," he said. "There can be beauty in what hasn't yet arrived." The man nodded. "And peace in what may never arrive." They sat together until the light began to fade. The tea bowls, one rough and one smooth, cooled quietly on the mat. As Ren gathered them, he noticed something small, a single green bud, just at the edge of the path. Tiny. Fragile. Almost invisible. But enough. He smiled. Sometimes, he thought, even a spring without blossoms is still spring. By the time autumn returned to the mountain, Ren's movements had become slower, not from age, but from awareness. Every motion now had a beginning, a middle, and an end that dissolved into breath. Even silence seemed to follow him like a companion. The trees around the tea house had begun to turn. Gold, amber, and rust shimmered in the thin mountain light. The air smelled of wood smoke and distant rain. Ren was sweeping the garden path when the man in gray appeared at the doorway. He watched quietly for a long moment, then said, "Leave the path today." Ren looked up. "But, Master, the leaves will pile up." The man smiled softly. "Then let them." Ren hesitated, but obeyed. He set the broom aside and followed his teacher to the edge of the garden. The man gestured toward the trees. "Tell me, what do you see?" Ren looked. The branches shivered, sending down a scatter of yellow leaves that spun gently through the air. "They're falling," Ren said. "Yes," the man replied. "And does the tree mourn?" Ren paused. "I don't think so." "Then why do we?" Ren frowned slightly. "Because we fear emptiness." The man nodded. "Yes. But emptiness is not the end. It is the beginning of another season." He reached down and picked up a single fallen leaf. Its veins glowed faintly gold, the edges curled like the corners of an old smile. "This leaf," he said, "once caught sunlight, turned wind into song, and gave life to the tree. Now it returns to the soil, not in sorrow, but in offering." Wren took the leaf from his teacher's hand and turned it over slowly. The surface was rough, dry, fragile, yet it carried beauty in every line. He realized then that the tree's strength wasn't only in what it kept, but in what it let go. The man gestured toward the tea house. "Come. Today, we will make tea for the falling leaves." Inside, the kettle whispered softly. Wren prepared the bowl with quiet care, the familiar rhythm steady, peaceful. As the whisk moved, small bubbles formed on the green surface, like floating leaves on a pond. When the tea was ready, the man poured 2 bowls. They sat side by side, watching the steam rise. "Tell me," the man said, "what does the falling leaf teach?" Wren thought for a moment. "To let go with grace," he said. "To fall without fear." The man's eyes softened. "And?" Wren smiled faintly. "To trust that what leaves us still nourishes what remains." The man nodded, content. "Then you have learned the final lesson of clay, that what breaks, fades, or falls is never lost. It only changes its place in the cycle." They drank in silence, listening to the soft sound of leaves brushing the roof. The world seemed perfectly balanced, between holding on and letting go, between movement and rest. When Wren stepped outside later, the path was covered in gold. He didn't sweep it. He simply watched the wind carry a few leaves away, each one spinning softly, disappearing into air. He whispered to himself. "Every falling leaf is a quiet bow to time." The man in gray stood behind him, silent but smiling, as the mountain accepted another season with grace. Night settled over the mountain, and the air held that stillness only found between 2 seasons, not yet winter, not still autumn. In the pottery shed, Wren sat before the kiln. The door was slightly open, and the glow of the fire touched his face with soft orange light. He watched the flame breathe, rise, curl, retreat, and bloom again. It was alive in a way he hadn't noticed before, not just heat but a spirit moving through air and clay alike. His teacher, the man in gray, sat beside him, quietly stoking the embers. "Do you hear it?" he asked. Wren tilted his head. "The crackling?" The man smiled. "No. Listen deeper." Wren closed his eyes. The sound shifted, wood sighing, clay expanding, the faint hum of air pulled into heat. Then, beneath it all, a pulse, soft, patient, like breath. "It's whispering," Wren murmured. The man nodded. "Every flame speaks. It tells us how much to give, how much to hold. Fire teaches generosity, but also restraint." Wren opened his eyes, the orange light reflecting in them. "So, too much and it destroys, too little and it dies." "Exactly," said the man. "Balance is not in stillness or movement, but in the rhythm between them." They sat in silence again, watching the flame shift from gold to deep red. The smell of earth and smoke filled the small room. Wren noticed how each pot inside the kiln held a faint glow, like sleeping hearts. After a while, he said, "When I first came here, I thought fire only burned." The man's lips curved slightly. "And now?" Wren smiled softly. "Now I see that it also gives shape. Without it, the clay would never become whole. The man nodded. And so it is with pain, with love, with time. Fire does not destroy, it reveals. Outside, the night wind passed over the roof, whispering through the bamboo like another flame, unseen but alive. Ren leaned closer to the kiln, feeling warmth on his hands. He could almost feel the clay's transformation inside, the soft earth turning hard, the fragile becoming strong. He whispered to himself, maybe every heart needs its fire. The man in gray looked at him, eyes reflecting the flicker of the kiln. Yes, he said. But never forget, even fire bows to water. Ren looked puzzled, but the man didn't explain. He simply stood, added one more piece of wood, and walked out into the moonlight. Ren stayed behind, staring at the flame as it danced, bright, restless, alive. In that glow, he felt both the warmth of creation and the ache of letting go. The whisper of the fire continued, steady and calm. As if teaching him the oldest language in the world, the language of change. Morning returned gently, carrying the scent of wet leaves and cooling ash. The fire from the night before had softened into a quiet glow. And pale smoke rose into the mist, not flame, not air. Something between both, drifting like a thought that refused to vanish. Ren watched it from the doorway of the shed. His teacher had left before dawn, leaving only a small note on the wooden table. When the flame sleeps, listen to what remains. Ren traced the words with his fingers, their ink still faintly damp. He turned to the kiln again, still warm, humming softly. From a crack in the stone, thin threads of steam coiled upward, blurring the space between the roof and the light outside. He walked closer, crouching down, letting the steam touch his face. It was warm but not burning. Gentle yet full of the same quiet energy as the fire. A bridge between what was solid and what had already gone. He whispered to himself. Fire changes the clay, but steam carries the memory. Just then, a cool breeze entered the shed. And the steam twisted into beautiful, fleeting shapes. A bird, a hand, a mountain. Each appearing and disappearing faster than he could blink. He felt something stir inside him. Not excitement, more like reverence. It was as if the air itself was painting stories with water. The world, he realized, was always speaking. It was people who had forgotten how to listen. Ren closed his eyes. He could feel the meeting of heat and coolness on his skin. A soft rhythm, like breath, inhale warmth, exhale mist. The boundary between air and water blurred until he could no longer tell which was which. Then he remembered his grandmother's words from long ago. Some things are meant for the dark, and for listening. He smiled. All this time, he had thought stillness meant silence. But now he understood, stillness was not empty. It was full of whispers, waiting for patience. He picked up the kettle from the old table and filled it with spring water. As it began to heat, he watched closely. Tiny bubbles forming, breaking, reforming again. A quiet storm before calm. The lid trembled. And from the spout came the first sigh of steam, soft, steady, alive. Ren poured it into the tea bowl. Watching as the mist curled upward between his hands. He thought of fire below, water above. And how they never fought, only met for a brief, sacred moment to create life. The rising steam wrapped around him like a veil. Half of this world, half of another. And for a fleeting second, Ren felt as if he stood between both. Not separate from anything. Not searching anymore. Just being. Outside, the mist began to fade, revealing the mountain path, the sound of water from a nearby stream. Ren looked toward it, smiling faintly. There would be another lesson soon. Perhaps from the stream, or from the sky, or from silence itself. But for now, he sat still. Hands cupped around the bowl. Steam rising like a spirit's breath. The space between fire and water. Between what is seen and what is felt. Between worlds. The afternoon sun lay across the tatami floor. A thin golden ribbon trembling with every breath of wind. Ren sat by the open shoji door. His tools set before him, the bowl, the whisk, the kettle. And a single leaf of tea resting like a promise in the scoop. The fire had burned low. The water inside the kettle murmured quietly. Its voice neither still nor boiling. Somewhere between becoming and being. Ren breathed with it. He remembered the whisper of the flame. The soft touch of steam. The lessons that lived not in words but in the pauses between them. His teacher had said earlier that morning. You've learned how to light, how to stir, how to wait. Now, learn how to begin without beginning. He hadn't understood then. But as he sat now, watching the faint curl of steam rise into sunlight, he began to feel what those words meant. He lifted the ladle. Slowly, without thought, without effort. And hovered it above the bowl. The water shimmered, trembling slightly. Each ripple reflecting a fragment of the sky. He waited. Not out of hesitation, but reverence. In that tiny space. The still air between kettle and cup. Something vast opened. A silence so deep it felt alive. A single drop trembled on the lip of the ladle. Glinting like liquid gold. Ren's heart slowed. His breath matched the rhythm of the waiting drop. And in that moment, before pouring, before motion, he felt the entire world balanced upon a thread. Time paused. The bamboo outside swayed. The kettle whispered. And Ren finally understood. That the soul of tea was not in the drinking. Not even in the making. But in the moment before action. When everything is ready. Yet nothing has begun. He let the drop fall. It struck the powdered green leaf. Breaking into 1,000 shimmering fragments. Releasing a scent that filled the room. Fresh, bitter, alive. Ren smiled softly. He poured the rest, slow as rainfall. And the sound of the water meeting the bowl was like the voice of the world exhaling. He whisked once. The froth bloomed across the surface like soft clouds over a still lake. Then he stopped. Not because the ritual was over. But because he no longer needed it to be complete. He bowed to the bowl. To the fire that had warmed it. To the water that had waited. To the silence that had taught him everything. Outside, the stream continued its eternal path. The sunlight deepened. And somewhere, in the quiet distance, a kettle began to sing again. A sound Ren now knew by heart. The garden was older than memory. No one knew who had first shaped its winding paths or placed its stones along the water's edge. Every dawn, mist moved through it like a living breath. And every evening, a single drop of water fell from the bamboo pipe onto a round stone below. Ren listened to that sound now. Plink, plink, plink. Steady, patient, endless. He had been living here for weeks, tending the moss, raking the gravel, watching seasons shift. After the lessons of fire and water, his teacher had sent him here with only a few words. Learn from what repeats. At first, Ren thought it was another test of endurance. But over time, the sound of the dripping water began to change. Not in rhythm, but in meaning. He noticed how the stone beneath it had a small hollow carved into its surface. Not from a chisel, not from force. Only from years and years of soft persistence. One drop. One moment. Endlessly patient. Ren knelt beside it. He touched the small hollow, tracing its cool curve with his fingers. It was smooth, gentle, yet impossibly deep. The quiet victory of time over resistance. He whispered, almost to himself. So even water leaves its mark. Behind him, the wind stirred the bamboo. The garden replied with its own hush. A reminder that nothing truly stands still. Not even stone. Ren sat back and closed his eyes. He let the rhythm of the drip fill his breath. Steady, measured, eternal. He began to sense the hidden lesson his teacher had meant. That strength is not in force, but in devotion. That gentleness is not weakness, but endurance disguised as kindness. He stayed there for hours, unmoving. Until the sun began to fall and the shadows grew long across the garden. The drip continued, unchanged. A sound older than memory itself. Ren opened his eyes, smiling faintly. I think, he said softly. I understand what it means to have empty hands. For the first time, he felt no desire to change anything. Not the sound, not the stillness, not even himself. It was enough to simply exist alongside them. To belong without claiming. To listen without needing to answer. The garden had become a mirror. Each drop of water a reminder that even the smallest motion, when repeated with patience, can shape the hardest heart. As the stars began to appear above the pine trees, Ren placed his hands in his lap and bowed to the sound. The voice of water on stone, whispering through time. To be gentle is to be eternal. The morning began like a sigh. A thin curtain swayed in the open doorway, the faint breeze lifting its edge. Letting sunlight fall across the floor in trembling shapes. Ren sat nearby, cross-legged, a broom resting across his knees. He was supposed to be sweeping the veranda. But the wind kept interrupting him. Each time he gathered a pile of fallen leaves. A small gust would slip through the paper screens. Scatter them, and leave the floor speckled again. At first, he tried to resist it. He swept faster, firmer, determined to keep control. But the harder he worked, the more the wind seemed to play. Lifting, swirling, laughing in invisible circles. Finally, Ren stopped. He leaned on the broom and watched the curtain move. The slow rise, the soft fall, the shimmering light shifting behind it. It wasn't taunting him, he realized. It was teaching. He stepped closer and touched the curtain. It was nothing more than woven linen, worn thin by years of sun and rain. Yet when the wind touched it, it became something alive. A dancer without form, graceful without thought. Ren closed his eyes. He could feel the air against his skin, the whisper of it through his hair. There was no pattern, no rule. Only rhythm, the kind nature creates without planning. He thought of all his lessons. Fire that transformed, water that reflected, earth that endured. And now, this, air that moved without resistance. Maybe, he thought, this was what balance looked like. Not holding still, but moving with what comes. The broom slipped from his hand. He sat down, back against the wooden post. And let the wind flow through the room as it pleased. The curtain brushed his cheek. In that simple touch, he felt something he had forgotten. How to let the world move him without fear. A single leaf drifted in from the garden. Its edges curling like a sleeping smile. It landed near the kettle, spun once, and came to rest. Ren smiled. He didn't sweep it away. He looked toward the curtain again. The fabric now glowing golden with sunlight. The wind had quieted. But every so often it returned, gentle, soft. Just enough to remind him that peace isn't silence, but harmony. In that quiet room, the curtain swayed once more. And Ren bowed slightly, as if greeting an old friend who had come to visit. Outside, the bamboo tapped against each other in slow rhythm. Inside, the air moved freely. Unseen, but deeply felt. The broom lay forgotten. The curtain danced on. And Ren, with his empty hands, finally understood what it meant to live in the flow of things. To let life pass through. And still remain whole. That morning, the air carried the scent of rain on pine. Ren was sweeping the stone path that led to the tea house when he heard footsteps, slow, careful, almost hesitant. He looked up. An old traveler stood at the gate. His clothes were dusty, his straw hat tilted low, and his eyes were kind but weary. Ren bowed. "Welcome. Please, come in." The man smiled faintly. "Forgive me. I saw the smoke from your kettle. I wondered if, perhaps I might share a cup of tea." Ren hesitated for a breath, then nodded. "You honor me." He led the traveler inside, guiding him through the moss-lined path. The garden was still wet from last night's rain, droplets sparkled on every leaf like scattered stars. Inside the tea house, Ren lit the charcoal with practiced hands. The flame rose softly, the sound of boiling water filling the silence. The traveler sat quietly, watching. His presence felt different, unhurried, gentle, as if he carried the same stillness that lived in the garden itself. Ren began the ceremony. He folded the cloth with precision. He whisked the tea slowly, each motion like a breath drawn by the earth. But this time, something inside him shifted. He wasn't thinking about perfection. He wasn't trying to remember what came next. His movement simply happened, effortless, natural, complete. The sound of the whisk, the drip of water, the faint rustle of the curtain. It all wove together like the rhythm of a single heartbeat. He placed the bowl before the guest. "Please," he said, bowing low. The man lifted the bowl with both hands. He didn't drink right away. He looked at the surface of the tea, the soft green foam, the rising steam. And whispered, "Even in this, the world breathes." Ren smiled. He had once thought the ceremony was about control. About doing each step exactly as taught. Now he understood it was about surrender. Letting the act reveal itself. The guest drank slowly, his eyes closing as he savored the warmth. When he set the bowl down, he said nothing for a while. Then, softly, he murmured. "You found it." Ren tilted his head. "Found what?" The man smiled. "The space between." Ren blinked, and in that moment, a gust of wind slipped through the open door. Lifting the curtain gently, scattering a few cherry petals across the floor. The garden outside shimmered with light. When Ren looked back, the old man was gone. Only the bowl remained, still warm, the faint imprint of his hands visible on its rim. Ren stepped outside, scanning the path. No footprints, no sound, only the steady drip of water on stone. He smiled softly. Maybe the man had never really arrived. Or maybe he had always been there. In the silence, the steam, the rhythm of every breath. Ren returned to the tea house, sat where the traveler had been, and lifted the bowl. He drank the last of the tea. And in that moment, felt himself become both host and guest. Both giver and receiver. Both sound and silence. Outside, the curtain moved once more. Not from the wind, but from something unseen. Something alive in the stillness. Ren whispered, "Welcome." And for the first time, he truly felt the garden breathe. The room felt wider that morning. Not because anything had changed, but because someone was missing. Ren slid open the paper door and stepped inside. The kettle sat cold. The tatami mats, once brushed smooth by daily ritual, held faint impressions where his teacher used to sit. The man in gray had left before dawn. No farewell, no ceremony, no words. Only a folded cloth and a single stick of incense on the wooden floor. Ren stood there for a long while, unable to move. He could still feel his teacher's presence. Not as sound or sight, but as weight in the air. Like a bell that had just stopped ringing. He lit the incense. The smoke rose thin and straight, carrying its quiet fragrance through the open space. It drifted toward the empty tatami, curling softly, as if bowing to what was no longer there. Ren knelt. The silence pressed against him, not harsh, not cold, but deep, almost sacred. For years, he had listened to every word, watched every gesture, trying to understand the perfection hidden in the simplest motions. Now, there was no one to guide his hand. No correction, no praise, only the whisper of smoke. He reached for the bamboo whisk on the shelf. Its handle felt lighter somehow, almost hollow. He held it still, remembering the first time his teacher had placed it in his palm. The moment you stop seeking, you begin to see. He hadn't understood then. But now, the meaning brushed against him like wine through a paper screen. He placed the whisk down. He did not make tea. He only sat there, letting time pass like slow water. Sunlight crept across the tatami, turning golden, then pale. The incense burned to ash. Still, Ren didn't move. He realized that the ceremony wasn't gone. It was simply invisible now. Continuing in silence, in breath, in waiting. The air shifted. A small breeze entered the room. lifting the edge of the empty cushion beside him. Ren turned toward it. And for the first time since his teacher's absence, he bowed, deeply, completely, to the space where no one sat. Because even emptiness, he now understood, deserves respect. The rain began before dawn. It tapped softly against the paper walls, a rhythm that sounded almost like a voice trying to remember itself. Ren awoke to the scent of damp tatami and quiet. For the first time, the room felt both foreign and familiar, as though it was breathing without him. He rose, slid open the small chest beside the alcove, and found a bundle wrapped in faded silk. It was the same cloth his teacher had always used to clean the tea bowl, now tied around a handful of old letters. They weren't sealed. Each was folded with precision, but never closed, as if they were waiting for air. Ren hesitated. Part of him feared that opening them would feel like trespassing into something sacred. But another part, the lonely part, longed to hear his teacher's voice again, even through ink. He unfolded the first. It wasn't addressed to anyone. Just a single line. When you polish the bowl too long, you erase the reflection you sought. The handwriting was uneven, as if written late at night. Ren smiled faintly. It sounded exactly like something he would have been told during practice. He opened another. The tea ceremony is not about tea. It is about the space between two breaths. And another. One day, you will serve no one. And that will be your truest service. Rain streaked down the paper walls. The scent of the ink, faint and mineral, mixed with the smell of wet earth outside. Ren read through each letter slowly, as though they were instructions for silence itself. The final one was shorter. Just 3 words. Written so lightly he almost missed them. Keep pouring, Ren. His name. Written for the first and only time. Something inside him loosened. Not sorrow, not joy, something quieter than both. He realized these weren't letters meant for students. They were reminders written to the teacher himself. His own confessions, his own lessons unfinished. Ren folded them back carefully, slipped them under the tea bowl, and bowed. The rain continued. Soft and endless. Like the ink that would never dry. And Ren thought, perhaps every master leaves behind such letters. Not for the world to read, but for silence to finish. By evening, the storm had faded into mist. The garden glistened, every leaf trembling with drops that caught the last gray light. Ren sat before the low table, the tea utensils laid out like old friends who had returned after a long journey. The air was cool, and the steady drip from the eaves sounded like the heartbeat of the house. For the first time since his teacher's passing, Ren decided to hold a full ceremony. Not for a guest. Not for a master. But for the rain itself. He began in silence. Hands folded, spine straight, breath steady. Every motion, once taught through repetition, now moved on its own. Gentle, unforced, like remembering how to breathe. He lifted the ladle. Steam rose in a thin ribbon, curling into the dim room. He poured the water slowly, watching how each drop disappeared into the green. The matcha swirled, then settled. its surface smooth and deep like a quiet pond. Ren looked down and saw his reflection trembling there. Not as he remembered himself, but as part of everything around him. The rain, the tatami, the cup, the air. He whispered softly, "Sensei, shall I serve?" There was no answer. Only the sigh of the wind through the paper doors. And the distant croak of a frog beneath the veranda. Ren smiled. He understood now. This silence was the answer. He lifted the cup with both hands and placed it before the empty cushion. The one where his teacher used to sit. A drop of rain slipped from the ceiling. And landed gently in the tea. The circle widened. Then vanished. A perfect ceremony offered by the sky. Ren bowed deeply. The teacup steamed softly. And for a moment, he could almost feel the warmth of another pair of hands. Outside, the mist turned to drizzle again. Soft and endless. And inside, the room held something larger than grief. A peace that came not from what was said or done, but from what had quietly remained. When he finished, he didn't clean the bowl immediately. He let it rest. The trace of green still shining faintly within. Like memory itself refusing to fade. Ren whispered one final time. "Keep pouring." And he did. Even as night came. Even as the rain began again. The small sound of tea being poured echoed softly through the house. A song for absence. And for everything that stays after goodbye. Morning light spilled softly through the shoji doors, pale and gold, like tea itself steeping in air. For the first time in weeks, Ren felt the quiet hum of peace settle inside him, not the heavy stillness of loss, but the weightless calm that follows understanding. He prepared the room as he had done hundreds of times before, yet today, every movement felt newly born. The kettle breathed a low murmur, steady and alive. The bamboo whisk rested beside the bowl, waiting, patient. Ren exhaled. The breath left his body in a single stream, slow and thin. He noticed how it mingled with the rising steam, as if the two were sharing the same rhythm. He lifted the whisk. The motion was light, a flicker of wrist, a spiral of air. The matcha powder, a deep green cloud, dissolved as water touched it. Then came the sound, the faint, rapid whisper of bamboo against ceramic. Cheery, cheery, cheery. The sound was not sharp. It was alive, a sound that existed only for those who listened closely enough. Ren watched as bubbles formed, small and perfect, like tiny breaths collecting at the surface. He thought of his teacher's words. Each whisk stroke is a heartbeat. Each pause, a breath the world takes with you. Ren slowed down. He let his movements sync with his breathing, in, out, whisk, pause. The bowl in his hands began to feel less like an object and more like a living thing. The matcha frothed gently, turning the surface a soft, luminous green, like the inside of a forest after rain. When he finally stopped, the whisk trembled slightly in his hand. And the air around him seemed to hum, a faint vibration. As if everything in the room had inhaled with him and now waited to exhale. Ren bowed. He looked at the tea before him, smooth, round, and still. It was not about perfection anymore. It was about harmony, the quiet understanding that even breath and motion, sound and silence, were all parts of the same conversation. He sipped slowly. The taste was deep, grassy, warm, and bittersweet. He could almost taste the sound of the whisk itself. And as he placed the cup down, he whispered into the air, "The tea remembers how we breathe." Outside, a small wind moved through the garden, carrying the scent of pine and distant water. Inside, the matcha bowl caught the morning light. A soft glow, like the whisper of life returning. The sun had climbed higher, painting thin shadows across the tatami mats. Dust drifted in the air like golden snow, rising and falling with every breath. Ren knelt before the utensils, the bowl, the whisk, the ladle, and then, resting quietly among them, the small bamboo scoop. It was light, so light it barely seemed real. Yet in the ceremony, this simple tool carried the weight of centuries. Ren reached for it, his fingers brushing against the smooth bamboo. Its surface was worn from years of touch. And as he lifted it, he felt a strange gravity in his hand, not from its mass, but from its purpose. He remembered his teacher's words, spoken long ago in a tone that was both strict and kind. If you lift the scoop too carelessly, the tea will forget its dignity. But if you lift it too heavily, you will forget yours. Ren smiled faintly. At the time, he hadn't understood. Now, it made perfect sense. He dipped the scoop into the matcha container, the fine green powder rising like mist. The sound, soft, almost inaudible, was like silk brushing against skin. He leveled the powder with a single motion of his wrist, the edge of the scoop cutting through the air with precision. The act seemed simple, but in its simplicity lived a quiet lesson. How awareness could transform the ordinary into the sacred. He felt the pulse of his heartbeat in his fingertips. Every motion slowed, became deliberate. The world outside, the trees, the birds, even the distant hum of the kettle, faded. There was only the scoop and the powder. Ren placed the green mound into the bowl. The powder fell in silence, landing like a small mountain against the ceramic's smooth slope. He stared at it for a long time. That little mound, barely a teaspoon, held the whole sky, the rivers, the soil, the wind. Everything that had ever been alive was there, reduced to a breath of green. He whispered softly, "How heavy the light can be." The phrase lingered, hanging between him and the quiet room. Ren didn't rush to continue. He sat, hands resting on his lap, listening to the faint creak of the floorboards and the kettle's low hum. He realized that this pause, this waiting, was also part of the ceremony. When he finally reached for the water, his hand trembled slightly, but not from uncertainty. It was the trembling of someone who knows that even the smallest act is the universe remembering itself. He poured. The powder darkened, then bloomed, releasing its earthy scent into the air, a breath of the mountains, a whisper from time. And Ren smiled, knowing that the scoop, though light as air, had taught him the heaviest lesson. That true grace is not in strength, but in balance. By the time Ren finished whisking, the light had turned soft and gray, that tender hour between day and dusk, when the air seems to hold its breath. The bowl before him shimmered faintly, a small lake of green still trembling from the last motion of the whisk. He waited, Not to drink. Not to move. Just to listen. The kettle had gone quiet. The garden outside was still. Even the cicadas had fallen silent. As though the world itself had paused to watch him. Ren inhaled slowly. The faint scent of matcha filled the air. Bitter, grassy, and clean. Like rain touching stone. He placed the whisk down beside the bowl. Its bristles dark with tea. Then, with both hands, he lifted the bowl and held it close. The warmth touched his palms, gentle, not urgent. Like the memory of someone's hand long gone. As he stared into the surface, the reflection of his face blurred and faded. All that remained was the swirl of green and gold light, floating like clouds in water. And then it happened. The silence deepened. Not the absence of sound, but a presence, vast, alive, filling every corner of the room. Ren could feel it in his chest. Like his heartbeat had merged with the air around him. The silence was not empty. It was full of everything that had ever mattered. He remembered his teacher's voice. The one that always came softly, like wind through leaves. When the tea grows quiet, let the silence drink first. Ren smiled. He placed the bowl down, bowed once, deeply, and closed his eyes. In that stillness, he no longer felt like a student or a man sitting alone in a room. He felt like part of something larger. The tatami beneath him. The bowl cooling before him. The steam that rose and vanished without a sound. There was no ceremony left to complete. No words to say. No motion to perfect. Just the breath. The bowl. And the silence that filled the room. A silence that held everything. And asked for nothing. It had been months since anyone visited the small tea house on the hill. The path was lined with moss and fallen leaves. And the old gate creaked when Ren pushed it open. He had prepared the tea room early, sweeping each corner with quiet care. As though expecting someone important, though no invitation had been sent. When he lit the charcoal, the smoke rose in thin blue ribbons, curling upward like forgotten prayers. The kettle began its soft murmur. A voice he had learned to understand. A language that spoke without words. Ren sat and waited. Outside, the wind stirred the bamboo grove. Inside, the tatami floor exhaled the scent of straw and thyme. A single knock broke the silence. It was gentle, uncertain. Ren smiled. A traveler, perhaps. Or maybe just someone who had followed the aroma of tea. He slid the door open and bowed deeply. A young woman stood there, rain-soaked, holding her sandals carefully in her hands. She bowed in return, eyes lowered, movements quiet. Ren guided her in. No words were needed. The ceremony had already begun. As she knelt on the mat, he poured the water. Slow, deliberate, letting the steam fill the air between them. Each motion was a conversation. Her breath followed his rhythm, his eyes followed her stillness. He realized then what harmony truly meant. Not agreement, not balance through control. But listening so deeply that two hearts began to move like reflections in water. When he placed the bowl before her, she bowed. Lifted it with care. And turned it twice before sipping. The sound of her breath, the faint touch of her sleeve against the floor. The echo of his own heartbeat. All of it became one rhythm. Ren felt a warmth rise in his chest. Not from pride, not from joy, but from belonging. This was Wa. The harmony of two people meeting. Not as host and guest, but as silence meeting silence. When she finished, she placed the bowl back, bowed again, and whispered, "Thank you for waiting." Ren looked up, surprised. But before he could answer, she smiled faintly, rose, and stepped out into the rain. The sound of her footsteps faded into the garden path. He sat for a long time, watching the steam fade from the bowl. It no longer mattered whether she had been real or imagined. What mattered was the space she left behind, filled with harmony, and the lingering warmth of presence. The morning came wrapped in silver mist. The air felt clean, new, as though the world had been washed while everyone slept. Ren entered the tea room barefoot. His steps slow, silent against the cool tatami. He carried no bowl, no ladle, no whisk, only a folded cloth in his hand. Today was for practice. Not of tea, but of motion. He unfolded the cloth and began to wipe the utensils, though they were already spotless. The gesture wasn't about removing dirt. It was about learning to move without leaving a trace behind. The soft whisper of silk against bamboo sounded like a heartbeat wrapped in calm. His breath matched it perfectly, in, out, wipe, fold, bow. A rhythm without thought. A prayer without words. He remembered something his teacher once said. Purity is not what you clean, Ren. It's what you stop carrying. He hadn't understood then. But now, as he polished the tea bowl, he saw his reflection in the curve of its inner surface, faint, trembling, almost gone. He realized he'd been scrubbing too hard, trying to make it perfect. And in doing so, he had been chasing an illusion. He stopped. He placed the bowl down gently and closed his eyes. In that stillness, he felt every small imperfection. The uneven grain of the bamboo whisk. The tiny crack near the rim of the cup. The whisper of dust settling on the mat. None of it disturbed the moment. It made the moment real. Ren bowed to the bowl. He did not wipe it again. Instead, he let it be. The kettle's faint murmur filled the silence. A soft, living sound that reminded him of rain. He took a deep breath. For the first time, he felt no urge to correct anything. No pull toward precision or mastery. His body moved only as it needed to. Not to impress, not to perfect, but to exist. When he opened his eyes again, the tea room looked the same as before. And yet completely new. Everything had a lightness to it. As if the air itself had been rinsed. Ren smiled faintly and whispered. This is purity. And outside, the mist began to lift, revealing the faint shimmer of morning light. Clean, quiet, and whole. Evening settled softly across the garden, turning the leaves to shadows and the air to gold. The old tea house breathed with the wind. The faint creak of its wood. The sigh of the shoji doors. The kettle whispering like a distant sea. Ren sat in stillness, the tea prepared and served. the bowl empty, resting in his palms. He had cleaned each utensil, bowed, and completed every motion. There was nothing left to do. And yet, he didn't move. He stayed there, listening to the small sounds of the room, and to the larger silence that held them. He thought of his teacher, of the rain that once fell on the roof, of the guests who came and went like passing clouds. Each moment, brief, fragile, had somehow folded into this one. He realized that tranquility wasn't the end of practice. It was the return to the beginning. He looked down at the tea bowl. A faint ring of green still clung to its edge. A reminder that even after cleansing, something of the moment always remains. He smiled. Nothing is ever fully finished. His teacher had once said, even completion breathes. The kettle's final sigh rose into the air. A long, soft note that faded into silence. Ren watched the steam drift upward. Curling, dissolving, vanishing. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. As if the world had just exhaled. He placed the bowl back on the mat, folded his hands, and bowed, not to anyone, but to the moment itself. The room grew still. A single moth fluttered near the lamp, its shadow crossing the wall like a thought passing through water. Ren whispered, Jaku. The word for tranquility. Not said to define it, but to release it. Outside, the wind moved through the bamboo grove. And the sound, soft, rhythmic, was almost indistinguishable from breath. Ren rose slowly, slid the door open, and stepped into the night. The garden glowed faintly under the moonlight, and the scent of earth and tea lingered in the cool air. He didn't look back. Because he knew. Tranquility wasn't something inside the tea house. It walked with him now. It was the quiet that followed wherever he went. Morning light spread thinly across the floorboards. The tea house was the same. And yet, different. No teacher waited, no guests approached. Only the low hum of cicadas. And the soft, steady voice of water warming in the kettle. Ren sat as he always had. The same mat, the same scoop. The same bowl he once held trembling as a student. But now, his hands were steady. His breathing quiet. He measured the tea, sifted it gently, and poured the water. The first pour. Steam rose, curling upward. And for a moment he saw himself. Years ago. A nervous boy watching every drop. Trying to be perfect. He smiled. Perfection had dissolved long ago. Now there was only attention. And gratitude. Each motion was simple. A repetition. But not a copy. Because everything had changed. And that was the teaching. He remembered what the old master once said. When you repeat the first pour, do not seek the first cup. The water has moved on. Ren whisked the matcha until it gleamed like morning moss. He lifted the bowl. Bowed slightly. Not to a guest. But to the act itself. The sip was warm, deep, familiar. In that quiet taste, he felt the river of all moments. The first, the last, and those between. flow together. A drop of tea slid down the side of the bowl and landed softly on the tatami. He watched it spread, a small circle of green returning to stillness. And then he understood. This too was ceremony. The repetition that reveals the infinite. Ren placed the bowl down. The sound it made, a soft click, echoed like the start of something new. Outside, a breeze moved through the garden pond, and the ripples caught the sunlight, like memory folding into peace. The air in the tea house was still. Afternoon light filtered through the paper shoji, casting patterns of soft gold over Ren's folded knees. The ceremony was complete. Yet something within him lingered. A space unfilled. Like the pause between two breaths. He turned toward the empty guest cushion. There had always been someone there. A visitor, a stranger, a friend. A teacher offering silence more powerful than words. But today, only emptiness bowed before him. Ren inhaled, slow and deep. And for the first time, he did not feel loneliness in that emptiness. He felt presence. A still, observing warmth. Like the memory of the master's voice, echoing softly within his chest. When there is no guest, pour the tea for the guest within. He lifted the tea bowl again. This time not as host. Not as student. But as both. He bowed. To himself. To the space that watched. To the quiet witness that had never left. The whisk touched the surface. And he moved with it. Breathing as the tea turned to green foam. Each circle he drew upon the liquid was a reflection of his own thought. Rising and dissolving. Rising and dissolving. Outside, the wind brushed the bamboo leaves. The sound was gentle. Like distant applause from unseen spirits. Ren smiled faintly. His eyes moist with peace. He poured the tea into the bowl. And placed it before the empty cushion. The steam rose, slow, curling, alive. And for a fleeting moment, he saw a form take shape in that mist. Not the master. Not a guest. But himself. Bowing in return. The vision faded. Yet its meaning remained. The ceremony had never been about pleasing others. Nor even about discipline. It was about seeing the sacred mirror inside every gesture. Where host and guest dissolve into one breath. One awareness. One quiet truth. Ren drank slowly. The tea tasted lighter than before. As if it had been waiting for this moment to be complete. When he set the bowl down, it made no sound at all. Only stillness. The guest within had been served. And in serving, Ren had finally been received. Evening came softly. The garden outside was hushed. The cicadas had fallen silent. And the pond mirrored the last light of the sun. A surface so calm it seemed the sky itself had bowed to rest. Ren knelt before the kettle one final time. No ceremony was planned. No guest expected. He did not prepare the tools. He simply watched the water. It quivered once. Then stilled again. As if listening. He realized he no longer needed the form of the ritual to find peace. Peace had already settled within him. Like the warmth that lingers after a shared cup. Every moment was ceremony now. The rising steam. The falling leaf. The breath that entered and left his lungs. Each one was a bow to existence itself. He remembered the master's parting words. When the tea grows cold, the teaching begins. Ren smiled. He stood, walked out into the garden, and sat by the pond. The moon was rising, a white disk rippling softly in the water. He picked up a pebble and let it fall in. Concentric rings spread outward. Slow, silent, endless. He followed them with his eyes until they disappeared. Then he closed his eyes too, and saw that same movement within his heart. Waves of thought expanding, fading, and finally returning to stillness. There was no sound. No teacher. No self. Only the quiet knowing. The still water that had been waiting all along. Ren whispered. Not to anyone, but to the world that listened through silence. Thank you for teaching me to see. The kettle clicked once in the distance. Then cooled. Steam drifted upward. Thin and graceful. A final offering to the air. The night deepened. In the tea house and in the pond. The water reflected the same truth. That all things return to their source. And somewhere between the last ripple and the next breath, Ren's heart became as clear as still water.